Boy. Okay, so anybody that was attempting to watch the live stream that was supposed to start 8 minutes ago, Alicia, who's on my team, works for me and she's phenomenal. And I asked her to make a cool overlay for this live stream. And it was amazing. It looked amazing. It was all branded and very
It was
cool.
beautiful.
And then we started the broadcast, and I don't think Alicia got the note that the overlay should be transparent. So you literally couldn't see us behind this graphic, and we had no idea what was going on. So thank you for supporting me in this time of technical need. So today I'm super excited, and now I don't know if people that signed up for notifications will get them or not, but I'm not really one to shoot around and chit chat while we wait for people to come on. So if you don't mind,
Yeah, let's
I
dive
think
in.
we'll just go forward and then people can find this as they want to. So I'm super excited to talk to you today, Jamie. I just finished your 12-week cohort, and I'm going to introduce you really fast, and I'm going to ask you some questions because even after having gone through it, it's really hard to describe this process to someone. So I think between me asking questions and you answering and having a conversation, it'll help illuminate things for other people that were in my shoes. Because I just signed up because it sounded cool, because I knew and trusted you. And thankfully, both of those things worked out really well. But I think for purposes of promotion, it'd be helpful for people to really get what this thing is. So
Yeah.
I'm going to introduce you, and I actually did shorten your bio a little bit based on some of the combos that we had. So I have Jamie Palmer is a human design business coach who helps people build a strength-based business that feels effortless and aligned to their identity. In short, she has figured out a way to make sure that your human DNA matches your business DNA. And then I prefer these fun facts. She lives in Newport, Rhode Island with her husband and 2 kiddos. So thanks so much for being on here with me. Do you want to say anything about that intro that I left out that you wanted to
No.
further comment on?
No,
Okay.
you did a great job, as always.
All right. So I have this nifty thing here in StreamYard where I've prepped these questions and I can show them on the bottom. So my first question is, how do you define human design? Because I've tried to and am not great at it, but I'd like to hear from the master how you define human design.
Yeah, I would say if you're familiar with Strength Finder, so Gallup has this thing called Strength Finder, and DISC or Enneagram, it's kind of like if DISC and Enneagram and Strength Finder had a baby. Those three things combined had a baby. That's sort of like human design because it really gives you insights into, one, your personality, two, how you're really designed to interact with other people, and then, you know, the environment that you're supposed to live in, depending upon how deep you go, and then also your decision-making style. But I would say the decision-making style, the personality stuff, and then how you interact with other people is really like the primary way or lens with which people really leverage human design. And that's, you know, Strength Finder, Enneagram, and DISC. If they had a baby, it's human design.
So to me, it sounds like, and this is kind of how I describe it, it's almost like, because people always want to know, is it woo? Is this woo? How woo is this? And I try to just, to me, it feels like the perfect combination of like practical with some more spiritual elements layered into it. But that's my definition. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, agreed completely. And especially, I'm a very logical person. And I joke all the time that my 20-year-old self would be like punching me in the head that I'm like leveraging human design so much in my business because I'm such a logical person. But I think it's also this balance of like, it is very logical and it is also pretty spiritual. And those two things can exist at the same time. And for me, that's really how I've been able to make sense of human design. And the reality is, for me, I sort of stumbled across it originally back in 2019 on Instagram. And like the more I dug in, the more sense that it made. And so my logical brain was like, you can't argue with this. And I couldn't unsee it. Like that was the other piece, right? So I learned I was a projector and I had to wait for the invitation and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, oh man, this is why so many things in my agency didn't work out great. And so the more that I dug into and saw human design and the depth of it and all of like, just all the pieces, I couldn't unsee it. And so my logical brain was like, no, this really does make sense. Keep going.
Yeah, I feel like it's well, it's most things in life, right? It either makes sense or it doesn't. And to your, I love those words actually. You can't unsee it. Like that's very cool, because if something sticks with you, now you have a new lens on. So now you can't not see the world or through whatever lens that you've just put in front of your face. So to me, that's really cool. How, in your opinion, does human design apply to somebody's business?
Yeah, I mean, human design purists will say it doesn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, many people who are formally trained by the International Human Design School are very strict about how they use it. For me, I hold it with more fluidity, and I really look at it as a tool that we can leverage in order to better build a business that's more aligned with who we are. So for many of the people that I work with, we look at like what business containers are best based on someone's design. We look at how they're making decisions in their business right now. Is the team that they're working with actually aligned with them energetically, or are they in compromise in any places? And then, of course, really like, are they in alignment with their strategy and authority? So are they making decisions as a projector or as a manifesting generator? And does that align with like their decision-making style? Because like, as you're a manifesting generator with emotional authority, right? So you have to kind of have this balance of responding and riding your emotional wave. And so I think there's lots of ways it applies to business, but I would see the biggest ones that I initially start to work with are the marketing, the sales, and the containers, because the containers tend to be a big one that people that don't take into human design into account get wrong.
What did you see? Like, I'm super interested that the academy or whoever, like the big board is who, oh, don't do it with business. Like, what was the light bulb epiphany moment where you're like, this is so much about business too? Like, what was that? Because I love that you break from the norm.
Yeah, I mean, the International Human Design School really doesn't want you to use it and apply it or intertwine it with any other modalities, whatever that might be. They're very purist in that way. It's a body of work that you're intended to like live from your design, and you don't take it and weave it into anything else. For me, I was in a really terrible place in my business when I stumbled into human design. And like I said, the deeper I dug into it and understanding me, I'm a 3/5 projector with emotional authority. The more I dug into that, the more I was like, this is why I'm having an issue here. This is why I'm having an issue here. This is why I'm having an issue here. And this is why all the clients like I'm attracting, and the team and everything, a big part of it was stemming from who I was. And I think I would say the biggest light bulb moment was when I learned my authority was emotional authority. So emotional authority is like, you're never going to have 100% decision on anything. If you get to 70 or 80% yes, or 70 to 80% no, that's a decision for somebody with emotional authority. And I kept waffling. Same. And I kept waffling back and forth for like 2 years of like, do I want to keep this agency? Do I want to keep growing the team? Or what do I want to do? And then I read about the emotional authority. I was like, I've been at like a 70 or 80%, like, no, I don't want to keep doing this for 2 years. But I kept going back and forth because I was like, I should feel more certain. Like 70% isn't a good reason to like burn my business to the ground. And so that for me was sort of the turning point to say like, oh, wow, this can really be applied to every aspect of being in business. And it's so true with so many of the entrepreneurs that I've worked with over the years. I look back in hindsight and I'm like, oh, this person is a generator, and this is why that business didn't work for them, or that container didn't work, or this sales and marketing tactic didn't work. And it really, like, you can get pretty nuanced in it as well.
Before I ask this next question, I just want to kind of piggyback with my own experience. Like what working with you in this I don't know, you calling it a cohort or workshop? I'm not sure, but the last experience I had with you, I think what the most valuable thing was for me was there were all the things that you pointed out or were highlighted about why I do things the way that I do, because internally I know that I'm not like most people are wired, but you also get here perfect example of like this is the first thing I thought of when you said, "Oh, emotional authority should be 70 or 80% should be the deciding factor." But then you see like a book that's called Hell Yes, or you know, do this, do this, do this, and you got to be like it's got to be this crazy like complete no-brainer decision. And it's not that emotional authorities can't have those, but we don't rule our lives with those. So it was like, oh God, like I just had this like immense amount of relief and clarity about who I am and why I do the things that I do. It was able to kind of put names onto them and why I travel so personally, why I travel. I don't travel downstream well. Like I need to understand things and I don't just follow. And it's like, oh my God, like just to have a name. And we talked about like the environment thing was like, I intuitively knew I need a place for work. I need a completely separate place to work out. I need a completely separate place to sleep. I need a completely separate place to do all the things, whatever the things are. And just hearing an explanation of why, there's a relief and clarity. Those are the two words that like come to mind the most out of my experience through here of going like, okay, you don't have to get and follow the book Hell Yes or whatever the book is called, or you don't have to do anything that everybody says, because as we know, life isn't one size fits all. So going through your program is like, oh, this is my size and why, this is my size and why. So that to me was, I literally felt lighter, and that's huge.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. So it's kind of, I guess we kind of rolled straight into the next question, which is, why do you think human design works so well?
Yeah, I think just like you said, I think it gives people clarity, validation, a name, and I hate to use the word label, but it helps them sort of identify with more clarity the things that they sort of intuitively know, but they can't put a name, like they don't know where it comes from or why it's there. And so I think that provides relief, and it helps people make sense of why they are the way that they are and why certain things haven't worked out. And I think in our industry, in the online space in particular, it's really challenging because everyone has like the one size fits all approach, or like go into this system and do this thing and you have to do it in this way. And they kind of try and keep you on a rat race of like, do a course and do a membership and do this thing. And the reality is, you as a manifesting generator and me as a projector have two different ways with which we prefer to interact with people, right? And ways we want to support clients. And I think when we can understand, like, you don't necessarily want to spend, you want your stuff, like you're going to bounce from thing to thing. Like you don't want to have to wait a year to get everything that you need to do your thing, where I'm okay with that. Like, let me go on this journey. Like, let me enjoy that process. And I think when we can honor those differences, and I think that to me is why human design works so well, because it helps us like honor and hold space for the things that make me unique and make you unique. And we can better interact with one another as a result of that.
I think the flip side of that coin about, celebrating your uniqueness and illuminating that and feeling relief and validated from that, for me, what it is the opposite side of that same coin, which is if you, in a lot of, this is not just our industry, but a lot of places, like follow this formula and you'll have success. And if you follow the formula and it's not laid out for your type, you turn it on yourself and think that you're broken. And oftentimes the big problem is, so does the person leading you through this. Well, they're not doing the work. Well, they're not showing up. Well, they can't make a decision, whatever the process is.
Yeah.
And so it takes away the brokenness that you can sometimes perceive if it's not like, if you're not like nailing it exactly the same way that the person teaches you. That to me is equally valuable. Sorry, guys.
No, I agree with you completely. And I think that that's such a good point, because I think so many times I remember masterminds and programs that I've been a part of over the years. They're like, it's too intellectual. It's too this, it's too that. It's like all these things. And it's like, and it's my fault because I didn't follow the formula to the T and it didn't work. Right. And it's like, well, it's not your fault. Like, I can't do the same thing that this person was asking me to do. Like, we're not the same person. And I think the expectation of that, whatever it is, right? Like, whether it's a workout or an eating plan or a business, we're not like one size fits all humans. So
Yeah.
why do we always try to like treat anything that we do in that way without understanding sort of, one, the past lived experiences of the other person, and then two, like, my design is different than yours and we need to respect that.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm looking at these questions as they come up, and we're kind of like doing the perfect intro into them naturally. But so, how does it help someone transform someone's life and business? I mean, I just laid out my case, which is like, you feel relief, you feel clear, you feel validated, and you understand that like you could be given a path or a road map from whatever course or program or mastermind, like you were saying. And it's like, what's cool is I'm trying to figure out how to make my screen's cut in half, so half my hand. So if you're given a roadmap, that's cool, but you have to understand that you will fall somewhere inside this roadmap, and it won't necessarily be, to use the same analogy, the fast lane, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might have to make a turn and come back on the road, or whatever the case might be. So for me, that's really cool. But what would you say, that's the same, or?
Yeah, I would say that's the same. And I think the other piece to take into consideration, and I stress this all the time, is like, what do you actually want for your lifestyle too, right? Like, if I want 100 acres in the woods and I want to build a $10 million business or a $2 million business, and you might have the same profile as me, 3-5 projector with emotional authority, but you want to make $250,000 in your business, you know, the ability for human design to support you is there with either one, but you also have to say, like, one, here's what I actually want. And I think that's a piece, like, people have to actually claim what they want in order to actually get to where they want to go. I always think of that Alice in Wonderland quote with the Cheshire Cat, where Alice is like, well, which road should I take? And the Cheshire Cat's like, well, any road will get you there if you don't know where you want to go. And so I think it's twofold. One, I'm big on like, let's claim what we actually want in life and how much money do we actually need to get there. And then B, let's leverage our design to do that. So I think it can transform people's lives in a lot of ways. But of course, it's like anything else. There's this balance of like, you can understand this knowledge, then you also have to take action on that knowledge. Because I think like I can give you a strengths aligned roadmap for you, and it could be a roadmap that's to build a 7-figure business, right? But you're like, I don't want to build that or whatever, you know what I mean? And so I think it's that piece of it's the balance of understanding like where you want to go. So I think it can radically transform people's lives when leveraged through the right lens, if that makes sense.
Which is the perfect literal segue to, what was the greatest insight you personally had when you HD'd your biz?
That it was okay for me to break every single rule and really just do things on my own terms. Like with the launch of the beta program, with the launch of the workshop that I did, everything that I've done for human designing my own business, I've broken every launching rule that there is, including barely promoting it at some points in my career. And it's been magic. Like, I don't know, people just keep showing up and just really tuning into like, is this aligned for me to do, or is this aligned for me to take action on this? So I would say it's not any one thing. I would say it's the combination of just trusting my own inner knowing every single step of the way that has allowed me to do that. And it hasn't come without work, right? Like I've spent almost 2.5 years studying human design and studying my own design and peeling back all of these layers of conditioning. Like when I first learned human design, I would never have such trust in my inner knowing as I do now. But that's because I've also put down layer upon layer upon layer in the past few years so that I could get to this point where it's just like, nope, I know I don't want to do that, or I don't want to send that, that final, like, you've got 1 hour left to enroll, blah, 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 or whatever, all those things that you're supposed to do. So just realizing like you can really build a business on your own terms and in the way that feels really great for you.
I just thought of another really cool piece of messaging for you.
Amazing.
Human design gives you a framework for your intuition.
Oh, I don't know. That might be, I love that. That might be the best one.
It does, though. It does. That's pretty, write that down.
I am.
Yeah, that's, as you were talking, I was like, oh yeah. You said something about being able to use your intuition. I was like, yeah, because you can see, you can almost like take your intuition and sort of make it, not tangible, it's not the right word, but you can see the framework basically of it, and that you have a unique framework as a manifesting generator, and I do, and whatever projector, or whatever the other things are. But yeah, I think that piece right there is what made me feel the most relief and gave me the most clarity of like, oh, you're kind of calling your intuition out and being like, this is not only is this okay, but this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
It's true. It's true. And you can like literally point to it. Like, here's the spot on the chart where this comes from. And here's the spot where this comes from on the chart. And I think it for me, I know it sort of like calmed my brain from being like, well, this doesn't make any sense. And this doesn't make any sense. Cause like I said, I'm a very logical person, but I could put, like you said, I could like almost point to it like, oh, this comes from my defined spleen, or this comes from my defined heart, or this comes from the fact that I'm, a values environment, or, you know what I mean? You could like literally have something tangible to tie it to.
Yeah, that's really cool. Trademark that framework for your intuition.
Yes, I think so. Do this for the weekend.
Other than me, what's the biggest insight a client has had? Like, when I ask you that question, like, who's the first thing that pops into your head, and like, what was the big aha for them?
Yeah, there's a woman that comes to mind. She spent her life as a lawyer, and she's sort of in her second career now as she's retired from lawyering. And she's a projector, and she had this amazing aha moment of like realizing so many things about why some cases in her life were successful, why some were not. But there was also this sort of like inner piece of her that like, I don't know, I just saw it come alive. Like I could literally see like she had been leveraging this one whole side of her chart and not like this other strength of creativity and intuition in her chart. And over the course of the 12 weeks, she like literally transformed into this like completely different person who is leaning into like the woo side of this rather than the lawyerly, like I have to have the facts and the figures. And she went from really being like, I need to get this answer right, to this woman who could then hold these two totally dichotomous things and then explore sort of the creativity of them. And she's like, I'm going to do this in my business now. And I've wanted to write this book, and I've wanted to launch this group program. And I've been so afraid to do it because nobody is going to get it because I'm formally a lawyer. And now she's like boldly embracing that. And I think, to me, that's like the power of this work, when we can see all these cool parts of ourselves in a way that we've kind of like stuffed them down, whether we personally stuffed them down or we've societally or culturally or because of our family and our friends, we've stuffed them down, and we can embrace all those cool parts of who we are,
I think that's really interesting about her being an attorney, but it kind of makes sense when you're saying it, because attorney brains are so logical.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how you deconstruct what happened and lay out a case. I mean, it is. I remember in college taking a logic class, and I remember the professor saying, like, if you're really good at logic, you'd generally be a really good attorney. As far as, who knows about a career, but as far as like the way that you need to think.
Yeah.
So it makes sense if she's doing that her whole life and career, she's activated that logical side of the brain and given no nurturing really to the other side. So That's really cool. So it can bring you, basically it can bring you alive, I guess is what I'm saying. Trademark that. Okay, now who would you say, and I have a kind of a correlation question to this, who do you think HD Your Biz is good for? And I know in marketing, we can always say, oh, it's good for everybody and you can get this, that, and the other thing. But like, if you were going to sketch out a person, whether it's in their life or in their business or whatever, who would could immediately step into HDing, learning human design for their business, like what's the ideal person who's like right there ready?
Yeah, I would say it's people who have tried something, right, in the online space and it just hasn't worked out for them. And they have like no reason why that it hasn't worked out, right? Whether they've taken a program or a course, but it's like, oh, this should work, but it's not working for me. Or for people who like, and this is usually, these two things usually come together. It's like, I've done this program and I'm doing all the things and I'm an expert in my business and I'm watching all these people who are better marketers than me, like have far more success, even though I'm probably a better teacher, more expert. And like, I feel like there's something missing. Like, I feel like there's something missing to this marketing piece. I feel like there's something missing to this business space. And I really feel like those people are really primed for HDing their business because it's sort of this coalescing of like, one, getting them to better understand their energy and what they bring to the table, and then putting them in the right containers to actually succeed. Because oftentimes I have a lot of clients who are manifesting generators who they've been forced to be put into these containers that simply just don't work for manifesting generators. And so I think people who are really in this place of like, it could be overwhelm, it could be people who are facing a transition, but I think the ideal is those people who have like tried, didn't work out, and really just want like a completely different way of doing it that's aligned with who they are.
And can you explain to people so correct me if I'm wrong, you're starting a new cohort on Monday?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Like, lay it out for people. They're like, oh, I HD or Biz or human design sounds cool. I would really love to figure out why I feel these ways that I can't pinpoint about my business. But like, why? Tell them like what happens.
Yeah, so it's a 12-week program. There are 6 weeks of learning human design and then 6 weeks of taking what you've learned about your design and then applying it to your business. And so I teach live every week. So there's a live teaching session every week for 12 weeks. And then there's a Q&A call each and every week. And so that's really to integrate the teachings, ask questions, figure out how to start to incorporate some of that stuff. And also like deal with some conditioning, right? Like I didn't expect this to happen, but in the beta cohort, we had so many people that were sharing so many stories of like realizations and ahas and just these like this weight that they had been carrying around like being who they are, and they felt like they were an oddball, right? Like I'm using air quotes because like no one's really odd, but we're labeled that way, right? And so there was a lot of like putting down these layers, and so that's the Q&A calls. And then we've got I'm sort of a weirdo. I have over 350 pages written of lesson text that goes along with each of the weeks. So not 350 pages each week, but there's like 20 to 30 pages that go along with each of the lessons. And then we also have a private podcast for people to consume the content on the go. And I really tried to hit all the types of adult learners: kinesthetic, auditory, and visual. So there's lots of different ways to like consume that content. So like I said, it's 12 weeks, 6 weeks of human design, 6 weeks of applying it to your business. And then at the end, there's like a roadmap that we do together in the last week to kind of say like, here are all the adjustments I need to make in order to HD my biz.
And thanks so much. And then you were offering that if anybody watches this and is interested in purchasing, is it $397?
Yeah, so it's $397, or there's a 3-month payment option. And anybody, for your people, they're going to get, I do a written mini snapshot for everybody who joins, but for your people in particular, I said I would be happy to do like a mini reading where you get on with me and we spend 30 minutes together and we go through your whole chart, and kind of just give you like a foundational understanding in order to sort of implement faster in the program.
And to me, honestly, the mini reading was like the very first, I mean, we hadn't even started the thing yet. And those were like, that was the massive environmental insight I got.
Yeah.
That I don't know that I could have gotten if I just like, if I read this on my own, searching for it, as opposed to you helping interpret what the heck it means. Because I do feel like, especially at the beginning, there's plenty of interpretation that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to have that conversation with you, well, I just feel like that, like I'm trying to work out and whatever the other thing was, from home. And I just like, I'm going nuts. And she goes, yeah, you said that. Well, that makes sense because you're this, and this, and you explain the environments, and immediately my shoulders just went down. I was like, all right, I don't really know what I signed up for, but I'm in for the ride, just because that was huge. That was huge for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the mini readings are super powerful, because then you can also say like, here's what's coming up for me. And most of the time when people can say that, it also gives me insight into, oh, okay, I know where that's coming from in the chart, right? Like, let's dive into that area and find out what's going on here. Because in human design, they have what's called not self themes. So I heard you in your not self theme of your identity center and in your profile. And so I was like, okay, well, let's just dive into it. And that's, the power of those mini sessions. And so thank you for saying that. I'm glad that resonated with you.
Well, you articulated it a lot more eloquently than I did. You said, all I should have said was, I just told you what was coming up for me. And you were like, oh, this is why. So that's a lot more helpful. I can't see on Facebook if anybody has a question or comments that we could answer. Can you do that without making the screech? Maybe nobody typed anything. I don't know.
I think I can.
I didn't tell people to ask questions, but if you have them, shoot them at us.
Yeah. So Robin was like, yay for the mini readings. Alicia says I need to do this reading. Robin, who was also in the beta cohort, was just saying the live teaching and Q&A is so helpful. And there are 13 other questions here that I cannot see. So let's see. Don't want to blast you guys with the audio.
Alicia, I'm still laughing. The overlay was supposed to be transparent and you made it white, and we didn't know why we weren't showing up because we were behind the transparent graphic. And I'm like, what the hell's happening?
I was just like,
I wouldn't have figured that out. Jamie figured that out. She's like, maybe you should take the overlay down. I'm like, no, this overlay is awesome.
I mean, it was beautiful.
It was awesome and not transparent.
We just have to fix the transparency. It's no biggie. Okay. I cannot see any other questions, but I'm going to mute myself real quick just so I can look to see.
Okay. People are supposed to be able to comment, and I'm supposed to be able to see them in StreamYard, but I can't, or there aren't any showing, so I wasn't sure if there were any.
Okay, so I got the questions and I muted us so it won't blast us. So, yeah, so Robin has just had some great comments. So much relief in understanding my emotional authority and honoring the differences. She also commented that she felt so broken so many times when the formulas didn't work for her. And yeah, framework for your intuition. Yeah, that is an amazing, I'm going to be trademarking that this weekend. A framework for your intuition.
I'd like a small road.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm going to be paying you to like revamp all my copy.
Okay.
No questions. No questions.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything that I missed that you're like, man, he should have asked me this? Or
No, I don't think so. I think you covered most of the things that I would cover. So yeah, we start next week. I do not do the crazy cart close thing. So if people want to enroll after Monday, they
Oh,
are
yeah, you
welcome
had people
to.
coming in a couple weeks after you started.
Yep. Yeah.
There's a link in the description, but I don't know if it's above or below this video. So in the post, there's a link there if you
There's
guys
a
are
link there
interested.
somewhere.
And you guys can DM me if you have like a question that you're afraid to ask, and
Yeah.
DM Jamie if you have questions direct, because she'll know
course.
the answer. I'll give you my strong opinions, but she'll know the actual answer.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
of course. Happy to answer any questions that anybody has. And like I said, we start next week. And if you do opt in through Sterling's link, we'll get the mini reading set up, and we'll try and do those right away, so you can get that insight in the first couple of weeks. And then as you're moving through the other stuff, you can start to like do a bit more work, because that mini reading is really like an accelerator, if you will.
it's honestly, the mini reading to me was worth the whole price. It really was.
Thank you.
So, all right. I appreciate your time. Thanks for showing up on a Friday. Anybody that's listening now or listening later, have a great weekend, and reach out to either one of us if you have questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sterling, for having me.
Of course. Take it easy. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.